All right, well, thank you and welcome. I kind of want to get started by centering ourselves and just kind of getting prepared in spirit. So you can just, if you feel comfortable, close your eyes and just relax your body. And deep at the center of your being, there's an infinite well of love and an infinite well of peace. So connect to that infinite nature of yours now. And at times we can experience a lot of chaos in the world, and we hear stories and we hear about things, but just dwell in this place of love and peace and allow that energy and the vibration of love and peace to fill this room and extend it out to fill this whole building. And feel that love and peace going outward into our communities, into our cities, into our state, and across the country. And know that when we tap into the energy of love and peace, that we are connecting to everyone that's in that vibration at any given time, like a network across the whole planet, cultivating more love and more joy and more peace. And we trust in the process of life. We trust that all good is unfolding in our world, and that the only presence and power in our universe and in our lives is extended outward, creating circumstances and creating environments of love and peace. And we affirm the good that lies before us. And so it is. All right, so I actually didn't know I was going to be doing the talk today, and I thought I was doing it next week, so there was a little bit of confusion in the scheduling. It was probably on my end. And I didn't realize that I'd be doing the talk when Stephanie Barton was here, although I knew what I was going to talk about. I wanted to talk about near-death experiences and shared death experiences, which are very similar to what we're going to be experiencing in church today, and then if you're staying afterward, because it's the connection to the other side. And so I wanted to discuss this topic as it relates to what these phenomena are, what people experience, the science behind it, if there is any science, and my personal experiences. So I've had more than one near-death experience and multiple shared death experiences, and I'll get into what that is later on. And then provide you with a few resources. I'm not going to overload you with resources because I know sometimes people have like 10 books, but I have just a few excellent resources on this topic that I have had over the years. And has anybody read any books or familiar with the topic, or even maybe I know one person has had a near-death experience at least. Many near-death experiences?
Well, not near-death, but I've had a lot of contact with people.
Okay, yeah. So the other side.
I've read many books.
Sure. Yeah, and I don't believe that you need to be near death to experience the other side. And we are going to kind of have a bit of that experience today. So I don't believe that that's necessary, but it is more common, I think, for people when they are in an experience or in a situation where they are closer to death to have that phenomena take place. So the first thing I want to talk about is just what is an NDE, near-death experience. And it's a psychological or psycho-spiritual phenomena that takes place when somebody is facing a life-threatening situation. And it doesn't always have to be an injury. There are a lot of people that have had a near-death experience where they were just faced with an encounter that could be life-threatening, and they had some sort of transcendent or spiritual experience associated with that event. And so what is the experience itself? The experience can be a detachment from the body. A lot of people have said they elevated out of their own body. They could see what was happening. Feelings of levitation, warmth, total serenity, and security, as if they're connected to another realm or reality. The presence of light, that is a very common attribute for people that have had a near-death experience. A tunnel or door, and oftentimes this is also associated with light, like a tunnel of light where they can transition to another reality. Life review is also very common with a near-death experience where people will have, they'll see their entire lifespan. And many people have said that they've seen multiple lifespans. They've seen multiple different times when they've been on the planet, and the experiences that they had, the lessons that they came to the planet to learn, how they influenced the path of the planet, and so forth. And then on very rare occasions, there are individuals that have reported negative experiences. However, in all of these cases, these negative experiences were deeply tied to the mythologies that they have, that they either grew up with, or the mythologies that they believed in at the time. So people have experienced, or said that they've experienced like a mythological hell, that they had an experience where it wasn't pleasant. But this is very rare. And again, it's oftentimes tied to some sort of religion that teaches those particular things. And then science. What's the science behind near-death experiences? And so some people or some scientists have said that it is a neurological phenomenon associated with a lack of oxygen or a flood of neuropeptides that create the experiences, or it's a hallucination that is associated with some sort of injury, either to the nervous system or the brain itself. And so that's the science behind it. And I actually like this. I like science. I am not convinced by the science behind this particular phenomena. And part of that is because of the shared death experience, which we're going to talk about. But I am just, and actually I have a slide here, I am by nature a skeptic. It's just how I am. It doesn't matter, spiritual teachers or even my own personal experiences. I have always just naturally been a psychic. However, I'm not a cynic. So if somebody tells me that they have an experience, I tend to believe them. I just recognize that it's their experience. And I'll actually talk a little bit more about this because I've had a lot of shared death experiences and how they differ in many ways. But and I think it's important for me to recognize that it's not my place to tell somebody what they haven't experienced. But I tend not to agree with the modern explanation of near-death experiences or shared death experiences, primarily based on my non-scientific experiences, the experiences that I have had, which I understand are not scientific. They are just my experiences, but I'm going to share those with you. And so I just want to be clear too, I've only ever shared about my near-death and shared death experiences one other time. And since it's Pride Month, sharing these experiences, it's almost like coming out of the closet, because you never know how people are going to respond to that. And I think sometimes people over-dramatize it, or they're trying to figure out for themselves what's going to happen when I die. And I don't know that that's necessarily the best thing to take away from a near-death experience, because they're not all the same. What I recommend, instead of taking away, this is exactly what's going to happen when I die, my recommendation in how I view it, because I don't even know, I'm not very confident because I am a skeptic of what's going to happen to me when I die. What I am confident of is that it's going to be good. And that I'm absolutely certain of. I'm not afraid of dying. I'm not afraid of, what might happen. I'm not afraid of, some sort of place that is contrary to love, joy, and peace, because in all of my experiences in life, I recognize that the ones that have been the most enlightening have been tied to my capacity to expand love, joy, and peace in my life. And it just makes sense that whatever is going to happen, it's going to be good. Let's see, did I have anything else in that slide? Oh, there's a near-death experience in Harry Potter. Has anybody seen the Harry Potter movies or read the books? I love Harry Potter. And if you have not, even though the author's a little bit problematic, the books are phenomenal. And there's this one scene where, and actually I have a slide for it. There's this one scene where Harry has a near-death experience. And he encounters, this old man here is Dumbledore. And Dumbledore, throughout the book series and the movies, is his mentor. He's one of the professors. And when I first read this and then saw it in the film, it made me recognize that this is so powerful for my own experiences. So Harry asks Dumbledore, is this real? Or is this all just happening in my head? And the best response that I could ever think of for this is Dumbledore says, of course it's happening in your head, Harry. Why does that mean it's not real? And I love that response. And it actually fits really well with, what we believe in New Thought, because we believe that there is one mind and we are one with that one mind, but we have our own individualized experience of life. And so even we can even say that about our reality now. Is this real, or is this all just happening in my head? Of course it's happening in our heads. In fact, every single person here has a different James living in their head than the one that's sitting here. And the same is true for each one of you, because you all perceive me differently. And so for me, and this deviates a little bit away from our topic, but for me, I think that's why it's so important to construct our mental reality in a positive way. Because we're really the storytellers. We're the ones that are creating the world around us. And it's not just that I can manifest something by thinking about it long enough, which is partially true, but more true is that we create the experiences that we're having in life. And it's interesting now that I've brought up New Thought, I find it fascinating. So I've read a lot of New Thought books. And any time the subject of death is brought up when it comes to New Thought, almost every author that I've read, whether it's metaphysical or new thought, like Wayne Dyer, Louise Hay, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, Emma Curtis Hopkins, all of them said that they were confident that they did not have to die. And all of them are dead. And I actually think the reason why that confidence comes up is because they were healed. All of them had experienced some sort of healing in their lives that went against what science told them was possible. But I have always found it fascinating how New Thought people approach the subject of death. And it may be possible. I mean, we're not going to die in the sense that we are eternal beings. I'm pretty sure of that as well. But in terms of these physical bodies, I think these physical bodies are temporary. And actually, there's one metaphysical and New Thought teacher, Emmett Fox, who talks about this. And he talks about death and what it means. And he says death, he equates it to a vehicle. And how if the Model T car didn't eventually become redundant, didn't eventually break down, we wouldn't have any other models of cars. And I love that because it's such a wonderful way of looking at it that, okay, so I have this physical body And eventually, and I can even upgrade this physical body in this lifetime, but eventually I'm going to get a bigger upgrade. And even the Bible talks about this. Jesus said that a seed falls to the ground and dies, but then it shoots up and creates much more fruit than it could have. And so I think that looking at death in that way is, it can be such a freeing thing. So many people are afraid of what will happen when they die. And a lot of it does have to do with the mythology that we have surrounding death. Are we going to go to an eternal heaven or an eternal hell? And I mean, if there's even that option, that's terrifying. But, thankfully at Unity, we believe there's only one presence and one power in the universe and in my life, God, the good omnipotent. So we know there's only one direction that at least we're headed. We can't necessarily be certain about other people because we're the only thinkers in our mind, and they're the only thinkers in their mind. We can just live our life based off of the truth that has been revealed to us. So, Dumbledore. All right. So I am going to talk a little bit about my own personal experience. I'm not going to talk about more than one because I think that the one that I wanted to talk about was it's unique to me. It's not like things that I've heard other people say. So I was hit by a car, and it was really severe. And instead of having like a light or a tunnel or anything like that, it was like I expanded outside of my body, and I was aware of everything that was going on around. And I was actually, I felt aware of everything that was taking place on the planet when I had this experience. And then I expanded outward even farther. And I felt it's hard to describe in words because it's such I don't know how to put it. Sometimes these experiences transcend words, but it was almost like I just kept expanding and expanding until I was aware of what was going on in the whole universe. And I recognized that I was one with everything that was going on. And I didn't encounter an individual. At the time, I didn't even really have a lot of religious or spiritual beliefs. It was just the experience that I was having. And I think it was associated with my core beliefs, which weren't really religious. They were more, I did believe in universal good at the time. And I think that was why I had the experience that I had. But I do remember being given a choice. And it was almost like my higher self was saying, you can go back, there's more to do. And the only thing I can remember thinking was, there's no way I'm going to fit in that little tiny body. Like, how is all of this going to fit in that itty bitty little speck on this itty bitty little planet? And when I came to, I did want to mention, I did have the emotional experiences of security and stability, and I had the emotional experience of everything, all is well, everything is okay, everything is working out. That much I knew. And I did have a perception of time that was different than the way we perceive time. I saw it more as a singular thing, kind of like even Einstein talks about time as everything happening all at one time, right? And that was sort of how I perceived this universe and this reality, this time-space reality. And so it was almost like I was sucked back into my body. And then pain came. And it was all throughout my whole body. And it was horrifying. And I was in the hospital and they were, tending to all of my injuries. And it took me a couple of years to fully recover from that experience, the injuries that I had. But in the interesting thing too is when I came back into my body, it was like, have you ever woken up from a dream and you're like, you want to remember what that dream is, but then you can't? And that's what it was like. It was like, it seemed so fleeting. And it wasn't until I had other experiences that it really came back to me what had taken place. It did change the trajectory of my life. And some people say that, I guess some people could say that it changed it in a negative way. I don't see that. I was out and gay, and one of the reasons why I was hit by the car is because someone was targeting a gay man. And after that took place, someone said to me, this is because of your lifestyle. And I had no framework for spirituality. And so I went back to the Christian church and I went into conversion therapy. And so for 5 years, that's what I did. And a lot of people think, oh, that's awful. And I think that I wouldn't repeat the experience. But I do think that that experience has given me a unique sensitivity to others that I also wouldn't trade it in. And it was in that experience that I got really interested in the Christian mystics. I was fascinated with the Christian mystics because they had these transcendent experiences and they knew that they were one with God. And I did recognize that, and I just called it the Holy Spirit. And I knew that when other people talked about the Holy Spirit, they were talking about some out there entity. And I was like, no, this is something I'm one with. And and then eventually through that experience, I had several shared death experiences. But before we get into the shared death experiences, I do want to give you some resources and then open it up for comments or questions as well. So Anita Moorjani is a phenomenal resource. I love both of her books. Has anybody read her books? The first one. I recommend the second one as well. What If This Is Heaven? So in her books, Anita Moorjani shares about her near-death experience. And one of the things that I like most about her explaining what happened is not necessarily the quality of the experience, not the specific storyline, but the result, what happened as a result of it, where she recognized she had cancer. She recognized she could see the source of her cancer was she was not being authentic with herself. She could see that. And she talks more about that. She tells the story about her near-death experience, but she talks more about, but this is what I learned. I learned that we came here to be authentic. We came here to love ourselves. We came here to stand up for ourselves. We came here to be authentically all that, we even say it in our mission statement, all that we came here to be. We're going to encourage and inspire each other to do that. And so that's a really great resource. And the next resource that I highly, highly recommend is Dr. Raymond Moody Jr. He is a phenomenal resource. He takes a more scientific approach to it. He did have a near-death experience. He's a philosopher. And he did have a near-death experience, which gave him a peek in, I guess you would say. And he has studied this, and he has talked to thousands and thousands of people. And so he has... it's short right there. Okay. He has several books. My favorite book is The Light Beyond. And the reason why I like that book so much is because if you're not familiar with the shared death experience phenomenon, that is what he talks about a lot in that book. Life After Life is another phenomenal book, and The Light Beyond. And then there are also two documentaries where he talks... Life After Life is more of where he's just taking a little part, and then The Light Beyond, he is more influential in that documentary. Both of those films, if you're interested in the subject, are phenomenal. So let's open it up for questions, and then we'll get into the shared death experience phenomena, or comments, or if you've had somebody's taking a picture. I'll go back to it. Yeah.
Well, in 1988, I was in a bad car wreck.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if this would be classified as a near-death experience, but whenever I was in the hospital and they was putting this rod in my leg, and I watched them do the operation, and I was totally out.
Oh yeah.
So I just wondered if that would be a near-death experience too.
Yeah, one of the phenomenon that takes place is being able to see. In fact, in my own story, I could see. I knew what they were doing. I think for me, that was one of the first things I perceived. Was what was happening around me, the ambulance coming, and it was almost like I was looking above that. But I got so distracted with everything else that was going on that didn't last very long. It's interesting though, because a lot of people that have these experiences will tell the doctors and nurses that, you know, I saw you and this is what you did. I had a similar experience to that as well. So I was completely out and I could see what was taking place, but there was a woman that was with me. She was, we were just close friends. She would not let the ambulance go unless she was in the ambulance with me to make sure I was safe. And I remembered that. So yeah, and even though I was completely out. So
And and also after that, I was not living a very spiritual life before this accident. And with the brain chemistry change and everything, it intensified my spiritual life.
Sure.
too.
yeah. Yeah. In fact, I think that the reason why I've had so many shared death experiences is because I had the near-death experience. I'm not sure I would be as open to it if I hadn't had that. Although, again, I don't think you need to get close to death. You know, there are people who have practices in meditation and centering that have very similar experiences where they feel that their transcendent nature and they feel that mystical experience where they're one with all or one with God. So it's not like you have to do it that way. I would recommend if you want that experience, you know, continue doing your spiritual practices because it's a much easier way of going about it. Does anybody have any other comments? We might be done really early then. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
I like the Dumbledore example that you shared because that's kind of what I believe as far as, you know, or like that movie, What Dreams May Come. You remember that, Robin Williams? I think it's kind of like whatever your individual self needs to experience, you know, whatever you believe and whatever you need at the time. So I love your Dumbledore example.
Yes.
That's kind of what I believe. I mean, and actually it's kind of ironic because I had a friend that recommended Waking Up by Sam Harris.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm listening to that, and of course he is like, I mean, there's some things that are good, but he's really skeptical, really doesn't sort of believe in the NDE and that kind of thing. And but you know, it's kind of like for me, like with faith and everything else, it's like, you know, the very act of believing changes the quality of my existence, and so I believe.
Yeah. Oh, and I 100% agree with that. I mean, like I focus on expanding my capacity to experience love, joy, and peace. And I do my best to be as authentic as I can within that, you know, staying there. And does that mean that, you know, what I believe about it in terms of my spirituality is all true? It may not be. I'm okay with that because here's what I know more, and I said it before, is that I know that it's good. And it's so good that I don't think whatever is beyond really is concerned about whether I get it completely right or wrong. So, go ahead.
Well, I think so much of it is a matter of touching, what I would call touching your dream. And I think that having experienced that and wanting to go there and then not being able to do that, and wanting to return, I think is a central part of whether you call it near life or near death or whatever. But it's like a redirection. The thing that always amazes me is how some people never get it.
Mm-hmm.
Some people go through their whole lives and never have a sense of who they are, never have a sense of wanting to know, and to me that's sad.
Yeah.
But I think it's like there is something beyond that you are attracted to, and you need to go there. And we live our lives in such a way through meditation or our daily lives or whatever that we are on that path. And I think that's the central core and the central theme of all this,
Mm-hmm.
is the idea of are you on the path or you're not on the path? And there is no beginning and there is no end.
Right.
It's just a matter of going there and recognizing that there is a place that you need to go,
Mhm.
and it's not here. You're not there, and it's trying to, whether it's through a near-death experience or through losing a job or a loved one or something that's reawakening your core being. I think it's the central element to the whole thing.
Mhm.
Is having the ability to see beyond your existence as it is today, and what it is that that you dream about, and knowing what that dream is.
So I think I differ a little bit, and it's okay for us to disagree. I don't believe we're going anywhere. I in my experience, the more I am here, the more enriched I feel, the more love I feel. You know, it's the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. And those qualities, the more I am here and present, whether I'm present with an individual or, you know, present with a group, the more I'm there, if that makes sense.
But at the same time, there are some who have a connection of something that was in the past.
Right.
And it's a matter of reconnecting to that. And then actually in many ways speaking to you and say it's time for you to listen. And it's time for you to redirect your life in such a way that you too can go back to who you've always been.
Mhm.
And that's not who you are now, in my opinion. So it is that ability to, you can't see beyond yourself unless you know who the self is.
Mhm.
And if you don't understand that that is eternal and never ending, and it didn't just start with when you were born this time.
Mhm.
And that's just my sense of it.
Right.
And that's okay. It's okay. The important thing is to be on the journey, because you never know when you're going to reawaken into something else. But it's being open to that. So what you're saying is absolutely correct. But at the same time, it could also be a way of you moving in the direction that helps you to move into the direction you need to go.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's a central part of what it's all about. It's like Martin Luther King saying, I've been to the mountaintop,
Mhm.
and I've seen the other side, and I know what's there, and I want you to join me to go there.
Yeah. And one thing that you mentioned, just kind of like, it brought up something that I come across a lot. So I do like spiritual coaching and stuff. And I have a lot of clients that will come to me about their relationships. They're having a lot of relationship type problems, and they'll say things like, well, I'm spiritual, but my husband's not spiritual and it's creating all of these problems. And one of the first things I say is, well, let's back this up a little bit, because there is no such thing as I'm spiritual and you're not spiritual, or you're not as spiritual as me.
I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. It's not a race. We're all equally spiritual. We're all equally valuable. You know, we all have equal access. Now, we may have different access based off of our maturity or where we're at in life, but we are all equal in terms of our access. And that's the first thing. If I'm coaching someone, that's and that's what he was kind of getting at as well. That's one of the first things I try to get people to understand is, listen, you are both equally spiritual. You just don't believe the same things. And understanding that, I think, is one of the most important things, because if I understand that everyone is doing the best that they can with the information and understanding that they have of life, then it's much easier for me to forgive if somebody does wrong to me. And forgiveness is where our freedom lies. At least a lot of spiritual teachings let us know that. So, go ahead.
My daughter is a Rhema graduate, so she's a follower of the original Kenneth Hagin. And he has a published book that says, I died and went to hell. I think he was 14 or at the time or something like that. And he was diagnosed with so much medical stuff that they said he was going to die. And so in his experience, he died and he was going down and he goes, wait a minute, what happened here? You know, I'm not supposed to be going down. And then he remembers coming back up, coming through the floorboards, through the bed and being back in his body and his grandma sitting on the front porch praying. And so, so it wasn't really the experience he expected, but it was in the realm of his understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I'm kind of like, okay. So then I took an avatar course. And an avatar course, the end result is a source being. So what they do during the course is they strip you temporarily of who you are and your experiences until you get down to who is the thinker behind who you are. And at that point, you're completely one with the universe. And you know who you are, you know that that situation is more real than anything that's out here. It takes you to that place. And when I came back from there, my job was to reach into the heart of God, gather as much love as I could, bring it back and scatter it across the face of the earth. When I, from that perspective, looked at Christianity, I could understand where they were coming from, but they had a totally different perspective of God. And after I had encountered God, I knew that that was not who God was, who they were saying he was. And so I basically had that kind of almost a near-death experience without having to have the trauma of the near-death. But I knew, and every time I looked at a belief system, it's like, oh, that's just a belief system. And if it's beneficial to me, I can adopt it. If it's not beneficial to me, I don't have to. And so it gave me a lot of freedom to look at the world from a different place. And when I start looking at belief systems, they're all right for that person at that time. And so you can jump into a different culture and you can say, okay, this is what they believe. This is kind of where this has come from. And I can experience this, but I can also experience the other. And it's when we experience all the different cultures that we get the expansion of my small mind in this individualized personality doesn't have all the answers, except that the answers are love and acceptance. And so it shifted me completely. When I first came back, I didn't know what to believe. And it took me a while to get, to integrate all the different things and figure out what to work with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that there are a lot of different religions, whether it's the Avatar religion or Christianity or Buddhism or philosophies and religions. All of them can give you that type of experience. Christian mystics, Islamic mystics. There is whatever religion you've had that experience in. I didn't have it in a religion. I did join a religion afterward, but now I don't claim a single religion. If I were to say, I don't really consider myself a spiritual teacher, but I think we're all spiritual teachers. But I think for me, I want to see people be authentic. That's what I really want, whether they have a transcendent experience or not. That I don't necessarily think that is important. Buddha, when he had his experience, he said, I became enlightened and then all mankind became enlightened with me. And I think that when we are really authentically who we are, it's just easier to recognize the beauty and the good in others. And I think that, so for me, whether it's the Avatar religion or another religion,
Avatar's not
yeah.
a religion, it's a course.
Oh, okay. Well, it's
not
yeah.
a religion, it's a 9-day course that the end result is a source being.
Okay. So, yeah. But yeah, I think that, whatever tradition you've had that experience from, I sort of see it all as the same thing, so.
I'm going to share my experience with you because it was a reality,
Okay.
but I'm not going into circumstances of it.
Hold that a little bit closer to your mouth.
What happened to me was.
Can you hold that a little bit closer to your mouth?
Like right here.
Perfect, thank you.
And what happened to me was, it was a very bad experience,
Mhm.
but not near-death experience. But anyway, when I become unconscious, I was going down a tunnel, and it was a long tunnel, and I was still not totally unconscious. I had a conscious thought, and it was, my God, I'm not going to be here tomorrow. And then my second thought was, I'm never going to see my children again. And I kept going down this tunnel, and at the end of this tunnel, there was a figure, a light, and I didn't want to go back to life. It was beautiful, it was peaceful, but when I got to that light, this image said to me, "It's not your time,"
Mhm.
and I suddenly become unconscious and was dragged back into another room, and that was my experience.
Yeah.
But it was real.
Yeah.
And I will say that death is not a scary thing because I did not want to go back. It was just the most beautiful, peaceful feeling that you could ever have. But what it was, I know it was an experience of God or a God disciple or something. But anyway, I wanted to share that because it was very real and it really happened.
Yeah. So, has anybody here been around somebody who's transitioning? I've been around a lot of people.
I have.
So near death, sometimes it doesn't necessarily mean some traumatic event happened. So I have found that some people just start seeing, a couple weeks before they transition, they start seeing old family members and friends coming around and so near death doesn't necessarily have to be a dramatic or traumatic experience. They are just getting closer to death. And so they are starting to have, experiences with people on the other side. And that is a very common story. And I've known people that have, that have had that experience or that I've seen have that experience.
I don't have exactly what the true near-death experience. I've had multiple things. I've been with
Hold the mic to your mouth.
I've been with my best friend when he transitioned. That was my wife, Judy, who's transitioned now. But Judy and I and Sterling Blocker, Dr. Blocker, and his wife, Catherine, and then his two of his kids, he has 4, were with him. But he went to the light. He saw the light. He said, "I see the light." I'm going to the light. He had pulmonary fibrosis. He had it for 9 years. He saw the light. He went to. I've not had near-death experience in the sense I had the first stage. I got hit. First thing, when I was 5 years old, I had my appendix out, and gave me too much anesthesia. My heart stopped beating on the operating table for over a minute, and that's when I was 5. When I was 20, I was a freshman in college in Greeley, Colorado, and I was on a motorcycle. And the last thing I saw 2 headlights before it hit me, impact. So I got hit by a car on my motorcycle, and I went to black. I've had 3 motorcycle accidents where I went to black. So I didn't have the light at the time. I didn't get that far. I got the first stage, which went black. And when I got hit by the car, I still see the headlights. This was over 50 years ago. And anyway, I eventually woke up. My father and my mother lived in Denver, Colorado, which is about an hour south of Greeley. And eventually I heard my dad say, "Quit faking it, Richard." My dad was not a nice guy. And I don't remember anything. Going to the hospital, any of it. It's all blank. I have total no recollection. I've had, which is not for this group, but I've had several spiritual experiences I have today on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And anyway, but I wish I had, I say I wish. We have what we have.
We have
all individuals.
Well, if you've had a spiritual experience, you've probably, I would just equate a near-death experience as a psycho-spiritual type experience.
Yeah.
So yeah.
My personal belief is that I participate in several different religious groups as well as I'm basic spiritual.
Mhm.
And I believe in Unity. I go to Venues Church. I go to Unity Spiritual Center. I go here. I'm a Baha'i. I've been several different religions. I've been Catholic, married the Catholic Church. I've married the Christian Church. It's all positive stuff.
Yeah.
But I believe basically religion is about power and control.
Mhm.
And this is spiritual. I'm here for the spiritual
Right,
experience.
right.
And share that with others.
So I do want to go into the shared death experience just really quick. We're almost out of time though, just really quick. So what is a shared death experience? And the shared death experience is a phenomenon of experiencing events associated with another person's transition. And it's actually very common. I had these experiences before I had language for them. It wasn't until I encountered Dr. Moody's work that I was like, oh, this is, first of all, it's common, but secondly, it's authentic. And so just quickly, what is the experience? So it's seeing the person's spirit leave their body, accompanying the individual in transitioning, shift in geometry of the room, hearing music or other auditory phenomena. And these are just basic examples. Everyone's experience is probably different. These are the most common ones. Seeing a brilliant light, the feeling of serenity and security, perception of other spiritual entities, and co-living a life review with another individual. And so the science behind this, science can't explain it. And actually, it hasn't really been studied, but it actually, in many ways, diminishes some of the thoughts that people have about near-death experiences. That, they're not, it's hard to explain away a neurological condition or a psychotic issue when it's not something, there's no trauma to the body and there's no, near-death experience. So it does diminish the theories, the scientific theories surrounding near-death phenomenon. And I did want to briefly mention my own shared death experiences because I have had several, but they were all significantly different. And I knew the people that were having these experiences well enough to realize they were a reflection of their core beliefs. And it was the experiences that they were having, I know would be the experiences that would make them the most comfortable. So my dad, I was sleeping when my dad transitioned, but I was in the same house because we were taking care of him. And my dad, I could hear him laughing, which he was a jovial, joyful, happy person. I could hear him laughing, and I opened my eyes and I saw him sitting at the head of a table. And there were a lot of people, hundreds of people at this table. And he was sitting right next to my brothers that had passed away. And he was laughing with them, and he was, just enjoying all of these people around him. And I was like, and I kept thinking, he's laughing, he's really sick. I don't understand how he's so, and then I realized, and I opened my eyes, my actual eyes, and I grabbed my husband and I said, Dad just died. And we went down and we checked, and the hospice nurse that was there said, the condition of the body, you would have had to know exactly when you transitioned.
Wow.
When you were sleeping. Another shared death experience that I had, for a while I kept thinking I was like the harbinger of death. I don't know why, but all of these people, I would be, I'd move to a different area and someone would be dying and I would be right there. And some people, I know, right? I'm not anymore. It hasn't happened for a few years, but some people would even wait until I got there and then transition right when I got there. So it was very strange, but another person, Jesus was there, big Jesus, but picking him up like a child and comforting him. Another experience that I had was, it was another one that was in a dream. Somebody had called me, her husband was missing. And I saw him, I had a dream about him. I said, I had a dream about him last night. And there were angels holding on to him and he was struggling. But the angels were kind of holding him back. I said, I don't know what that means. And he had committed suicide through asphyxiation. He put the exhaust in his car. And what you could see was he was trying to escape it because it was in the snow. You could see everything, you could kind of see the footprints. And he was definitely trying to escape what he realized he was doing. The angels were pulling him into a very positive and happy and joyful place. And I could tell that as well. And so, but these experiences are likely associated with our core beliefs. And that's, notable resources really quick. Raymond Moody, I already talked about him. Glimpses of Eternity is the good one for shared death experiences. And why do we talk about this? So Wayne Dyer says that when you determine what happens to you after you die, when you know for sure, everything else in your life falls into place and becomes much easier. And that's why, when people, if people were to ever talk to me, if people were to ever talk to me about this issue, number one, I don't really bring it up a lot. Like I said, it's kind of like coming out of the closet. But for me, I know that it's going to be good, which means that every step toward whatever experience, whatever mystery takes place, I know is going to be good as well. And that's one of my affirmations. I wake up every day and I open my arms really wide. Some people do their affirmations like this. They're not opening themselves up for anything, but I am open and receptive to all good. It's one of the first things I say every day. I'm open and receptive to all good. And then I just pay attention and look to see how is the universe reflecting all good to me. So that's why we talk about it. We talk about it because knowing about these subjects and learning about them helps us in our, you could say spiritual walk, but really what it helps me to do is it helps me to love others more authentically and to be myself more authentically. Say yes to the things I want to say yes to and no to the things I don't want to do. I am empowered when I realize that I matter. And I am empowered when I realize that everyone matters equally. So, all right, so we're going to wrap up. We have some announcements, but first we're passing the basket around. If you are watching online and you would like to give, you can go to unityofspringfield.org and click on donate. You can give through the Tithely app, Unity of Springfield, or you can donate through PayPal, ccunity@sbcglobal.net. And we have the announcements.
Announcements. James, nice job. Today we have Stephanie Martin talking in the service, and she's going to be presenting Angels Among Us this afternoon at 1:30, and you can pay at the door if you're not pre-registered. The cost is $20. Next week, June 19th at 9:15 a.m., the New Thought and World Religion class will be presented by Teresa Mezcua on Joe Dispenza's Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. Pride Night at Springfield Cardinals is June 30th. The price is $19 plus tax for a ticket and a t-shirt. It works out to be about $21. You have to be pre-registered and prepaid by June 15th, which is coming up real fast. You can pay at the office. We can take it online or you can call in. And then on June 25th, we have cornhole and karaoke. Cornhole tournament begins at 3. Registration is $20 per team. You have to be registered by 1 p.m. the day of the event. There will be a double elimination tournament, so each team is guaranteed at least 2 games. There will be food and beer and wine available for purchase. And also save the date for July 3rd. It's going to be Picnic Sunday. Thank you. And when we get done with this, we're going to circle up in the back and say prayer.
Yes, and you can register online at unityofspringfield.org for the cornhole.
All right. Thank you.